Welcome to the College Admissions Process Podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success. What's up, podcast friends, and thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process Podcast. While analyzing the podcast data, I realized that many of the earlier episodes, some of which received the most overall downloads and are still extremely relevant today, are not being listened to as much as the newly released episodes. This is why I created the alphabetical list of colleges available on the podcast with the link to the related interview to the right of each school. Please use the alphabetical list as part of your college search, which can be found in the show notes and on my website, www.collegeadmissionstalk.com. The alphabetical list serves as an on-demand virtual college fair with schools from throughout the country. To highlight how valuable the alphabetical list is, I will release past episodes that receive the highest overall downloads on Wednesdays throughout the summer. Please share the alphabetical list with anyone you think that may benefit, as it has proven to be such a valuable tool for so many listeners. So are you ready? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you today Dr. Ramon Blakley, who is the Interim Director of Admission for the University of Texas at Austin. Dr. Blakley, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me. And, thanks for doing this. This is cool. I haven't done a podcast in a little bit.
Thank you so much, Doc. Well, it's really cool to have you. And I want you to know, and the listeners to know, that my interview with the University of Texas at Austin was episode 63. That was the first interview with UT Austin, which, by the way, was released back in August of 2022. The episode received one of the most downloads of all episodes and was actually shared again as part of our Playback Wednesdays, which we do highlight the most popular episodes each summer. Since the original release date, have there been any new initiatives, perhaps in the areas like sustainability or technological innovations like AI, that our listeners should be aware of?
Well, first of all, like I said before, thank you so much for having us. And most of all, thank you for providing this resource for students and families. There indeed have been a lot of changes in all of higher education since August of 2022, but particularly here at UT Austin. But I'll tell you one thing that's been constant, and that is that we are still committed in serving the needs of the state through education, research, and innovation. And there's a pathway to benefit everything that's created here, just about for everyone. And so we've really been honing in on providing more resources. And one program in particular that's brand new is our new robotics program. We just are starting that program. It's more of an honors program, an interdisciplinary program that allows students to really expand into the world of robotics and artificial intelligence. But there's so much that we can talk about that's been new since 2022.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And let's dig a little deeper in terms of
Sure.
some popular programs. What are some of your most popular programs, in addition to the new robotics program that you mentioned, that set UT Austin apart from other colleges and universities? And can you share any unique experiential learning or internship opportunities tied to these programs that help students prepare for life after graduation?
Absolutely. Well, let's just kind of go through a few of them. Obviously, you're familiar with the Macomb School of Business.
Mhm.
It's our College of Business, our School of Business, which is regularly ranked among the top business schools in the country, with strong both undergraduate and MBA programs. Um, some experiential learning opportunities would include like the Canfield Business Honors Program, which offers students kind of a case-based learning leadership development and access to exclusive internship opportunities with, some of the top firms in the country like Deloitte or McKinsey or Goldman Sachs. That's a great opportunity to talk about, experiential learning. In addition, there's the Venture Labs that provide students hands-on experience in entrepreneurship, consulting their own real startups. We can look at engineering, obviously known for cutting edge research and strong programs in civil engineering, mechanical, petroleum engineering. One of the most a unique program in petroleum engineering. There aren't many in the country. But there's a program called Engineering Your World, which is a project-based learning initiative where students can tackle real-world problems using engineering. There's also our Texas Spacecraft Laboratory, where students design and operate small satellites, preparing them for careers in aerospace and technology, just to kind of name a few. Our nursing program, also very popular. Um, our Moody College of Communication, offering programs in journalism, advertising, public relations. I'm pretty excited about our programs in Los Angeles and New York. So we have a UTLA program where students intern with major media and entertainment companies in Hollywood. It's actually in Burbank, but
Hmm.
Hollywood. And then there's UTNY, where students can actually engage with the scene there, whether it's working directly with markets or even tapping into some of the communications opportunities there as well. There's just so much. Even our College of Liberal Arts, which is a home to a lot of the standout programs like psychology, government, linguistics, just to name a few. We've got this Archer Fellowship program that gives students internships in Washington, D.C., and also for students who are interested in politics, policy, or law. Um, Lots of things to choose from, man. We can go on and on. I think the biggest thing is we really believe in experiential learning. And so our focus on experiential learning ensures that students graduate with both academic knowledge and practical skills. Academic knowledge and practical skills. These programs are supported by partnerships with some top companies, some research institutions, and community organizations. It's really about offering internships and real world experience. And so, this combination of rigorous academics and hands on training equips our students to thrive in competitive markets.
Well, definitely, you spoke about your incredible academic programs, your
Yeah.
internship opportunities, and the tons of real world experiences. Like you said, you have so much. Now, you touched upon the interdisciplinary learning
Yeah.
opportunities a little bit, but I want to unpackage it because I know that interdisciplinary opportunities are very important at UT Texas. So, can you share how the university encourages interdisciplinary learning across its academic programs? And can you give us some examples of how students might blend different fields of study?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Well, the way that the world works, the way that the world of work works is, it takes several disciplines that you're using on a daily basis. And so I think several of our majors are interdisciplinary in nature. So let's talk about the Bachelor of Science in Biomedical Engineering, for example, which is offered by the Cockrell School of Engineering, but involves substantial coursework um, in the life and physical sciences. So in the various area study programs within College of Liberal Arts or Latin American Studies and Middle Eastern Studies. So students examine a geographic area from viewpoints of several traditional disciplines. In addition to interdisciplinary majors, there is a simultaneous major option in the formal degree program. This program provides students with an opportunity to kind of build and diversify their own major. It includes minor and certificate programs that aren't necessarily reflected on the transcript, but are designed to really help students bridge those different disciplines together. So we really try our best to make sure that students have a broad breadth of opportunities and they can really build some really cool opportunities with the different majors that are offered.
Yeah, I'm glad I asked that question because I knew that interdisciplinary studies is something that you definitely cultivate at UT Austin. But
Yeah,
it's not just interdisciplinary opportunities. You have interdisciplinary majors. So you
that's
really take
correct.
it serious. And, we
Absolutely.
appreciate that overview.
Yeah.
So cost, of course, is something that's really important to so many of the students and the families that are
Yeah.
listening. So, Doctor, with the rising cost of education being a concern for so many of the families that are listening and beyond, how is UT Austin working to make education more accessible and affordable, especially for your out of state students?
Yeah. Costs are rising, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've put a lot of resources in making sure that we're affordable and accessible, first of all, to Texans. And we prioritize Texans. with programs like our newly revamped Texas Advanced Commitment that covers the cost of tuition for families with financial need who make less than $100,000 per year. Now, previously it was 65,000, so we've increased that within the past few days. But our out-of-state students can receive scholarships as well. And we're always encouraging our students to obviously file the free application for federal student aid, also known as the FAFSA. And they're also eligible for uh, out of state fee waivers when they are available. So it is competitive. It's important to note that, like I said earlier, we do prioritize Texans. But if for students that are out of state, there still are opportunities that are available to them, including scholarships. And one of the things that I'll note about scholarships is a good many of our scholarships are also awarded from our grads, also known as Texas Exes, our alumni. And so there is the Premier Scholarship, which is the 40 Acre Scholarship, which can be awarded also to out of state students, covering the full cost of tuition, room, and board.
Well, we appreciate that. And I know that the University of Texas at Austin is becoming so popular for people like me that live in the Northeast. I know actually a lot of students that graduated and are currently there. So, Doc, could you just share what is the percentage in terms of your in state population and out of state?
Yeah, and so we definitely appreciate that, and we think that it's important to have students from all over the country, all over the world, and we certainly have alumni that are in these various areas as well. So we love to have every thought process, cultures represented here at the institution. But about 90% of our students, particularly in the freshman class, will be Texans, and 10% will be either out of state, so basically other, domestic students who are not Texans, or international.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that data. And I
Yeah.
just want to point to that because we talk sometimes about institutional priorities, which is something that a lot of people don't
Yeah.
understand. So you could be an out of state student, A plus average, president of the senior class, and for whatever reason, you're not accepted to UT Austin. Now, you might think it's something that you did in your application, but I'm willing to bet with those numbers where they have an institutional priority that no more than 10% are going to be from out of state, and that includes international students. Not everyone is going to be admitted. And again, I'm willing to bet that the first 30%, if you will, that are not admitted from out of state, their profiles are probably very similar to the students that are admitted, except that you have that cap of 10%. So students don't think that just because you get rejected, it's something that you definitely did. It could very well be because of an institutional priority, such as this one, where they accept 10% of out of state and international students. Is that correct, Doc?
That's a great way of putting it. And also, even for Texans, we we have to say no to really strong students across the board. And so it's so important that students know that this is never a reflection of any of their abilities or what they said in an application. Obviously, the best way to have a shot is by submitting an application and submitting your
Right.
best work. And I think there's always this conversation about demonstrated interest. Well, you demonstrate interest to UT Austin by submitting an application. And that's how you get into the running, and how we're able to make a determination as to whether or not we're a good fit for you. But the reality is, there are going to be some great students that we're going to have to say no to quite a bit.
Well, we appreciate that. So it's
Yeah,
very important, everyone, to understand the different parts of the application and
yeah,
to represent yourself in the best light possible, whether it's the transcript, which we're going to talk about in a minute, personal statements, supplementals, and what have you. But at the end of the day, the importance of that balanced list, because you may be eligible for acceptance into a school like UT Austin, but there are institutional priorities in terms of the number of seats that are available, not only at UT Austin, by the way, but every single college or university throughout the country and beyond. So being mindful of that is very important. Now, you mentioned demonstrated interest. So I just
yeah.
needed to ask, as a follow up, how important is it for applicants to engage with the college through campus visits, virtual events, or other outreach? And does this have any impact on their chances of admission? In other words, does UT Austin consider demonstrated interest in its admissions process? And if so, how is it tracked or evaluated?
Very good question. So we do not consider demonstrated interest. As I alluded to earlier, the way that you demonstrate interest is by applying to UT. But I will say this, it does benefit the student from the standpoint of you will have a stronger application if you have set foot on campus, if you have had an opportunity to expose yourself to some of the great visit programs and opportunities, talk with some of the academic programs that are here. That will help you talk more about why this is a place that you like to study. So I don't want to um, and then also also I'd say this, engaging with our counselors to ask questions that are of importance to you. But never are we counting messages or counting whether or not you visited campus, to have that play as a part as to, whether or not we're going to extend an offer of acceptance.
Well, I appreciate that, Doc, especially since you're talking about the fact that UT Austin does not track demonstrated interest. But what you
That's
said
correct.
is very important and it's worth
Yeah.
repeating. Even if a college or a university does not demonstrate interest, students, it's very important to engage in those types of things, whether it's a campus visit,
Yeah.
virtual event, someone comes to your high school and you get to meet a representative, because throughout those visits and those conversations, it may help you as part of your overall application to really get a good understanding of what UT Austin is all about. What is their mission? What is their philosophy? Does it resonate with you? Does it really mean that it's a fit for you, right? So doing all of that will help you in the overall application. So it's important to do those things again, whether or not a school says that they track it or not. Now, I also read that your retention rate is an incredible 96%, which represents the percentage of students that return to the university after their freshman year. So, Doc, what programs do you have in place to help students transition to your school community from their many high schools that they're coming from, while then wanting to return to campus after that freshman year?
Well, thank you for that. And I think it's also important when you talk about the 96, and it's actually 96.7. So you can round it up to 97.
I stand
But that
corrected, doctor.
but that retention rate is reflective of a host of things. But I think also maybe it's important for students to also know what a typical retention rate is to say if that's good or not, right? So the average retention rate is right at about 70%. So that kind of sets a baseline, at least, of the University of Texas differentiates itself, and it's due to a number of factors. Campus-wide programs that we launched years ago have contributed to that success. Making housing more available and affordable for low and middle income students, providing resources like supplementary instruction, providing opportunities for students to engage through programs that are offered through our Sanger Learning Center, that basically allow students to go in and get tutoring by dropping in. In addition, being really focused in working directly with students, uh, and them knowing that when they come to the university, they're admitted directly to a major. So we don't have any of the pre-majors opportunities where students can come in and decide if they're going to be admitted into a major. Given a case in point is our nursing program. When students start at UT Austin, they're automatically in a nursing program.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of schools will have it where you're going to, spend a year, take a couple courses to get a bedrock, and then you have to make application later. So the fact that we're also extending an offer of admission to a student directly into a specific major pathway also lends to them being more engaged with that pathway and navigating it as such. So a lot goes into it, but we're very proud and we're not happy with being at 96.7. We
Hmm.
want to continue to grow that retention rate.
Well, we appreciate that. I'm going to repeat some of the things that you said because I
Yeah.
think it's a good lesson for students and their parents to ask questions related to
Hmm.
this in terms of how do you build that sense of community? How do you transition students from
Yeah.
high school to that awesome University of Texas at Austin? You talk about campus programs, you talk about housing options, resources
Yep.
for students to engage with others, and the direct entry programs. You gave nursing as only one of your many examples, which I think is
Yep.
great. Again, you want to know, what does the campus do? What does the college or university do to build community? So when you are visiting on campus, when a rep comes to your high school, that's a really good question to ask in terms of what are the things that they do to help the transition from high school to college. And of course, looking at the retention rate is very important. As the doctor said, national average 70%. I stood corrected. UT Austin, 96.7%. So they're doing a lot of things right, not only in admissions to get the right students on campus, but also
Right.
once those students are on your campus to keep them happy and wanting to come back. Now, you touched upon a lot of different supports, but I have to ask, what other academic and personal support services does UT
Yeah.
Austin offer to help all its students, regardless of their learning needs, achieve their full potential, and of course, navigate challenges during their college experience?
Yeah, there's a ton. I'll hit on a few. One of the things that I think is very beneficial to our students is the fact that our career engagement is robust. And so basically, students have an ability to work directly with career advisors that are based specifically in their colleges. Now, I don't know if you know this, but when I was in school, and I don't miss maybe your story as well, but when I was in school, we would all go to one specific career office that was
Yes,
basically meant to do everything to all
that,
people.
that's
And
correct.
so you found that if your major was not one of those top majors, maybe you didn't get the attention that you needed. But really and truly taking that career engagement piece and making sure that each college is focused on making sure the students have that pathway is one of the things that really is a shining star for us. I guess another thing that stands out is this program that we have called the Graduation Help Desk. And I know this sounds, when you see help desk, you think about maybe someone's like sitting by a phone and just waiting to receive phone calls. And really this it's kind of what it is, but it also helps us identify barriers that students are facing as they try to navigate their way towards graduation. And so sometimes through this help desk, through this program, we're able to see trends and say, okay, maybe we need to offer another section of this class because our goal is graduation. And also, we've changed our language, and a lot of schools are doing this now. We refer to students by their graduation year. So, right now, despite the fact that many students haven't set foot on campus yet, we're recruiting the UT Austin class of 2029. We refer to them as Texas 29. So getting that mindset behind the idea that you're
Mhm.
going to be walking across the stage in 4 years and this is your class. We got a few traditions that kind of also speak to that. We do this big thing called Gone to Texas. And so imagine gone to Texas. This is this big outdoor activity. We have this iconic tower that's on our campus. You've probably seen it in a lot of the
Mhm.
pictures. But at that Gone to Texas program, students are sitting next to their classmates, their colleagues, people that maybe they'll even do business with one day, maybe
Hmm.
someone that they're going to marry or whatever it may be. But in that moment, there's this big celebration as they begin their academic journey, and shining on that tower is the number, that 29 or whatever it may be, that
Hmm.
class that they're going to graduate. Now here's the key: they don't see that again until it is graduation, and
Wow.
that's a monumental moment that
Wow.
begins to kind of get it sunk into students. Listen, the next time you see these numbers on this tower, it will be your year to graduate.
Well, that is awesome. I mean, you talk about mindset, you bringing them
Yep.
together as a class, which, first of all, anytime you bring the class together, you're
Yep.
building community, but you're putting, for example, Texas 29, you're putting that 29 up there to
Yep.
really have them see the vision, and then the next time they see it is at graduation. I'm also appreciative of what you're talking about in terms of being mindful regarding career planning, but also
Yep.
graduation. And it goes to show that that's the reason why when you are admitted to UT Austin, you're admitted into a program. There's direct entry into a program. So all of this, I hope the people that are listening, I hope you understand the better sense of the UT Austin commitment, their culture, their community. And so I hope that these things resonate for you. And perhaps UT Austin is not the school that you're going to apply to, but bring some of the things that we're talking about here and ask the questions of whichever rep you meet with, again, to help determine whether the school is the right fit for you or not. So we appreciate that. So, Doc, I want to switch gears a little bit and talk more about the overall review process. First of
Sure.
all, what are the different ways for a student to apply to the University of Texas at Austin? For example, I'm talking about early decision, early action, regular decision. And is there a benefit to applying one way over the other in terms of not only being admitted, but also for those scholarship opportunities?
Sure. So at UT, we have two deadlines. One is the early action deadline of October 15th, and the second deadline is our regular deadline, which is approaching now. It's December 1st. It does not matter which deadline a student meets, they will be considered for the program that they're applying to. And I think it's important to know when you apply to UT, students are going to list a first and a second choice major. And so we're going to review the students typically for that first choice major, but we also will take a look at that second choice major. Now, when you talk about the benefit to meeting that early action deadline is that you're going to receive a decision from us sooner. So if you meet that October 15th deadline, a student is going to receive a decision from us on or by January 15th. And that January 15th decision will be either congratulations, can't wait to have you join us, or we need more time, right?
Right.
And so if you meet that regular deadline, then we will make sure that we get a response to students 1 month after that. So that's February 15th. And that's when all of the other decisions will roll out. There's absolutely no benefit to applying to one or the other than getting an earlier response from us. And we encourage students to submit their best application when they can do so. That's it. Don't
That's awesome.
rush and turn in an application that's not your best. But if that October 15th deadline suits your purposes, then by all means get it in and spend a lot of time enjoying your senior year. This is
Right.
your senior year of high school, so enjoy it. And that's my thinking. I think about this from the standpoint, and we all do in our office. We think about it from the standpoint of we give advice to students based upon how we would treat a family member. And for
Right.
my family, I want to be at Thanksgiving not worrying about completing an application. I want to have all that
Absolutely.
out of the way because there's so much to enjoy that last year of high school.
Well, I appreciate you mentioning that. Number one, you want to have a nice Thanksgiving dinner where you're not worried about where you're applying or meeting deadlines. Hopefully, by then
Yep.
the applications are in, and so that, to your point, you could really enjoy not only the family but that awesome and one and only senior year of high school. So, Doc, could you explain your holistic review process and what specific experiences the admissions team looks for when reviewing those applications?
Yeah, I don't think that there's anything prescriptive. There isn't a one size fit all. There aren't a set of
Hmm.
values that we are saying, hey, this is that magic formula. I think what we're really looking for are, I would say, a diversity of things. Students who obviously are coming to us and they're coming ready to be engaged in a classroom and ready to contribute in a classroom. Students who are intellectually curious, who have that light, that bright light within them where they are really at a position where they want to learn more. And they also want to figure out how what they're learning, how that is going to not only change their life, but the lives of others. And so
Right.
when they apply for admission, we're going to be asking them these questions through our short answers questions where we ask, why did you choose that first choice major? I think one of the things that's really helpful there is for students to not only say, I'm interested in this major, but I'm also interested in this major specifically at UT Austin. And this is why. We're looking for how they see themselves in the world. Is the major something that's going to help get them from point A to point B, or are other people connected to that? Is there a problem that they want to solve, an issue that they want to address with their education? These are all things that are very important to us. Again, but I would say, like I said earlier, these aren't check boxes. These are values that we go into our rethinking about as we're looking for that next class. But it isn't like, okay, this student has this, yes, this student has this, yes. Even when it comes to leadership, We realize that students see leadership in different ways, and we do as well. So you may have a student over here who is the president of an organization, a student that is the captain of a sports team. But you also may have a kid who is caring for a sick loved one, or another student who's actually having to work part time. We see all of that as leadership, but the thing that's most important is, how do you define it? So that's what we're looking for. But we don't have one prescriptive, I would say, recipe that we're looking for in terms of a UT student.
This is your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome back Sean Patel, who's the founder and CEO of Prep Expert. Sean, welcome back.
Thanks, John. Thanks for having me. And I'm so excited to announce that Prep Expert is the official title sponsor of the College Admissions Process podcast. This has been a partnership in the works for a while now, and I'm so glad we got it off the ground. We're so excited to work with families, parents, students of the College Admissions Process podcast at Prep Expert to help them through our live online SAT and ACT courses not only improve their SAT and ACT scores, but help them get into college as well as win hundreds of thousands of dollars in college scholarships. Thank you so much for the partnership, and we are so excited to work with your families.
Thank you, Sean. And to learn more about how Prep Expert can support your child's academic journey, visit prepexpert.com today, and best wishes to all. Well, we appreciate that. And I just want to repeat how you talked about looking how students are going to change their lives. But you mentioned earlier, in addition to that, how they're going to contribute and change other people's lives, right? Because if you had to categorize it in two things, number one, you're looking at the academics to make sure that the student can certainly handle the work once they're on your campus. But you also want to see that you're going to have a diverse community of different people. Maybe it's someone who's into the athletics, maybe it's someone who's into the humanitarian affairs, so that you could build that community. But again, I repeat, you looked at what is a student going to do to contribute to their own life, but how are they going to help others? Because you want people that are going to, frankly, make that awesome UT Austin community, embrace it, and frankly, make it better. Am I right, Doc?
100%. I couldn't have said it any better than that.
Fantastic. So, speaking about the academic piece of this, the transcript is obviously a key component, right, in terms of
Yeah.
that academic review portion of the overall application. So, how does UT Austin weigh course rigor versus GPA in the admissions process? And do you give preference to students who challenge themselves with advanced coursework? In other words, no two GPAs are alike. Not every GPA is
Sure.
created equally. So, what do you have to say about this, Doc?
Yeah, we believe in context. And
Hmm.
so every student is read in his or her own context. And that means also what's offered at the high school. We're very curious as to how a student attacks the rigor that is available to them at their specific high school. And so, in some cases, students are at schools that are maybe underserved, and they don't offer a what we would consider the blue ribbon rigor that's available at some high schools, and that's okay. But then there are some students who are at schools where there's a lot that's being offered, and so we want to see how a student performs in that specific context, the resources that are available to them. And so when it comes to GPA, we obviously take the GPA and we do our own thing with the GPA, but the GPA and the read are two separate things. But for that read, our team knows to look for school profiles. They know to look for you know learning what that specific scale is at that school, and then really looking and seeing how this student compares to other students. And the same thing could be said for standardized test scores. We look at the full landscape of how students are performing on standardized tests at that specific school. So it's not like school A versus school B, but in this specific context, how does this test score connect to this academic record at this specific school?
Well, we appreciate that. Another piece of the overall application, of course, is the personal statement.
Right.
So, What are some common pitfalls students should avoid when writing their personal statement? And can you share examples of how a unique personal story really elevated an application?
Absolutely. Okay, so first of all, we've expanded the long essay to be whatever a student wants to share with us. And I think one of the great things about that freedom is that students have the ability to choose from any topic that they want. We obviously want to make sure that we remove barriers and not add an additional um, checkbox for them to choose a specific topic that we are prescribing. So for that long essay, it's whatever they want to share with us. And I think it really is something that a student should consider as kind of an interview. Since we don't do personal interviews, this is an opportunity for us to not only A, learn what the student wants to share with us, but then B, also to hear from them in their own voice. So that long essay definitely accomplishes that. And I've read some really great ones through the years that really and truly help me um, supplement or connect with the academic record and all the other things that I've read, who this student specifically is. And then we've got our short answer essays. And those are really specific questions that we have, things that we want to know specifically about the student. And we're very direct about it. For instance, the first one is why did you choose the first choice major that you chose? And obviously, we know students have an array of majors that they can choose from. So we want to know why this particular major is of interest to them. And so we're looking for, as I mentioned earlier, why this is something that they want to study at UT Austin as well. And the second prompt is really another opportunity for students to shine a light on things that they care about. So many of our students will submit a resume, and that's not required, but we know that students have been involved in different things. And so that's one of those optional items is a full resume. But on the application, you have an opportunity to list activities. But we want students to think about the activities that they've been involved in, both in and outside of the school, and write and share with us one that they're most proud of and why. And so this could be an extracurricular activity, a club organization, a volunteer activity, a work or family responsibility. Again, another opportunity. Now, the pitfalls, to answer the question specifically, that students take is that instead of using this as an opportunity to really introduce us and have that interview with us, they instead are coming from a posture of what is it that I think the University of Texas wants me to say? Or what type of student? Let me write from a perspective of what I think a typical UT student should be saying. And instead of using it as an opportunity for authenticity. So, again, to state back for the audience, we're looking for authenticity. We're not reading these essays for grammar. And of course, it's always good to have great grammar.
Hmm.
But more important than the grammar and sentence structure, and again, that is important. I know there are English teachers that will make cringe. Uh, that's important. But the reality is, we truly want to get to know who that authentic student is on the other side of that app. And sometimes, um, you know, kids just don't get that, unfortunately.
Well, I appreciate that. You said a lot of great things in that response, and I want to repeat one thing in particular. Students, what you should not do is try to determine what is the typical applicant. In other words, what is it that the admissions representatives want to hear from a typical applicant to UT Austin? And the reason why is because if you're just like every other applicant, your authentic self is not going to come out, right? So, as Doc mentioned, you want to be authentic. You want to show how you differ. You want to show, what it is that happened. What was your thought process? How did you pivot? How did you make yourself better? How does it relate to going to UT Austin? How are you going to contribute to that community? It's very unique. You need to be authentic and stop trying to be like everyone else. Because if you're like everyone else, you're probably not going to get admitted, right? Because there's nothing that's going to shine. So I thought that that was so great, Doc. I really appreciate it. And some
I
colleges
can
and
I can I add one more thing?
Yeah, please.
Okay, I'll say this too, because a lot of times when we're in these spaces and we're sharing this information, it really causes a lot more stress to students than we mean for it to, right?
Hmm.
And so, um, it's almost like, and you do this, John, that this is like families go into this process adding stress to their sons and daughters as well. So it's always like, hey, how can we demystify? How can we make this a lot easier? How can we explain it? And then there's some things that happen to students in their academic record that they don't think, wow, should I share this? So I want to elevate one thing, and that is
Please.
that despite everything that we've shared regarding this application process, there's also an optional opportunity for students to give us more information, particularly if there's some special event or circumstance that they feel may have impacted their high school academic record or their performance. An opportunity to be honest. And because I say that, because John, I think a lot of times students don't want to admit or to explain why this grade over this grade, or maybe they were on this pathway and then something happened. I think one of the greatest things that's a term that we all say, but I wonder if students ever really latch onto it, and that's grit.
Hmm.
How did you face an issue or a challenge, and how did you overcome it? And how do you talk about it? I think that's very important. So we do have that optional answer that's there, optional short answer question that students can use as well. And it's another way for you to continue, for students to continue that conversation.
Well, I think that's great insight and great advice. Absolutely. Show your grit, students. Don't be
That's right.
afraid to talk about, you know what, you got a C plus in ninth grade. It's okay. Explain
Yeah.
why. Maybe something happened with you, a relative, something else. Anything that you do not share with the admissions representatives, you're leaving it to them to speculate as to why. So
Well said. Well
yeah, well,
said.
but you too, well said in terms of taking that opportunity to write something in that optional essay portion, right? If something
Yeah.
happened, explain it. Otherwise, again, you're leaving it to the admissions representatives to speculate. So, another thing that I wanted to ask about, Doc, for listeners who may not be familiar with something called the Common Data Set,
Yeah.
can you explain what it is and how prospective students and their families can use this resource to better understand key aspects, for example, of UT Austin, such as admissions data, financial
Yep.
aid, and even student demographics?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So there are requirements that we have to give reports to the Department of Education and to make available um, on our website, but also on national websites that really can give a student a good, clear picture as to um, a number of things. What are the outcomes of our students? What is the makeup of our student body? What from a academic standpoint, so many data points are there. And I think one of the greatest ways to get to the common data set, or what we would report, would be through the a website called College Navigator. So this
Hmm.
is a national site. This is run by the federal government as well, but you can actually search on a number of different things. You can search directly the name of an institution, or you can search for institutions in a specific state, and you get a treasure trove of data, admissions data, enrollment data, so that you can get a real snapshot as you begin to imagine yourself on that specific college campus. So, student demographics, financial aid data, key aspects of the institution. You could see alumni giving. There's just so much that's available in these resources. And I think if you're doing your homework, I would always start there. And I think they've really done a better job through the years in putting this information out for families. I think a lot of families I think more and more families are using it, but I like to get at the common data set specifically through the College Navigator, because I feel like in that specific space, it's really put together for students who are in this college search process.
Well, that's terrific. And we could definitely link College Navigator in the
Yeah.
show notes along with the information that you want to share regarding UT Austin. And if all
Okay.
else fails, you could just search common data set, insert the name of school,
That's
obviously
right.
University of Texas at Austin. It reminds me of a lot of families that ask me when their child gets waitlisted, for example, oh my God, what are my chances? Many of the common data sets actually offer that as well. The number of students who are accepted, the number of students who attended, but also the number of students who, yes, were put on a wait list and what was the percentage that ended up getting an acceptance from that wait list. So there's really a lot of information there, and I'm glad we
Yep.
shared it so that it will hopefully help students and their families through the college admissions process. Doc, this has been a phenomenal conversation. We're almost
Oh,
at the
thank
last
you.
question, but before we
Yeah.
get to that, I always have to ask, are there any questions that I simply didn't bring up today or any topics that didn't come up that you'd like to share with us now?
No, I think we've covered quite a bit. I think also one thing that I love to talk about is the the way that parents can engage in this process. I think traditionally we have used the language of, you know, parents step back and let the students take control of that. And I know that for those of us that are Generation X,
Hmm.
that is probably one of the most difficult things for us because we didn't have parents that were doing these things for us. So we're like, we're going to be that. Um, but I think there is a healthy balance. There's a healthy balance and we're learning as an industry how we can engage parents. And so parents, I would say find that healthy balance, have those conversations with your student as to how they want you to be a part of this process. And by all means, look for resources for parents. And I can specifically say that at UT Austin, there is a parent communication stream, and there are parent resources that are available as well. So I'd love to share those in the show notes if you allow me to do that, John.
Absolutely. That would be my
Yeah.
pleasure. Anything that helps the students and their families,
Mhm.
just send it to me and we'll put it in the show notes. Doc, again, this has been amazing. You already gave so many great pieces of advice, but the last question always is, what are your top 3 pieces of advice you would provide students and their parents getting ready for the college admissions process?
Pay attention to deadlines.
Hmm,
Don't be too, humility is great, but this
hmm.
isn't the time for humility. This is the time to really, you know, brag on yourself. And then last but not least, um, don't take it too personal. You mentioned this earlier. There are institutional priorities that have nothing to do with you.
Right.
And so it is not a reflection of who you are, whether you get a yes or a no. And that's those are the three things that I would share for sure. Yeah.
Well, that's terrific. Not only those 3 things, but you shared so much more. Thank you, Doc, for your
Yeah.
time, your expertise, all of the tips. This was phenomenal. I do hope to have you again in the future. Thanks again, Doc.
Thank you, John. I appreciate you.
Our pleasure. We appreciate you. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care, all, and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the CAP. Hey, podcast friends, if you've been enjoying the College Admissions Process Podcast, I'm excited to share my new book, Straight from the Admissions Office, Insider Strategies for College Applications. It's packed with insights and tips from over 250 podcast episodes with admissions professionals designed to make the college process less overwhelming. Whether you're a student, parent, or college counselor, it's a valuable resource for navigating the admissions process. By grabbing a copy, you're also helping to support the podcast. The links are in the show notes. Thank you, and best wishes to all with the college admissions process.